Horror as a genre is known for exploring our innermost fears through metaphorical use of the supernatural, apocalyptic, or science fiction elements. Depending on your favorite flavor of horror, you may be familiar with horror's exploits of death or violence, fear of the unknown, fears of becoming sinful or corrupted, perversions, guilt, shame. Many great horror movies could easily be used as time capsules because they capture the general socio-political mood and fears of given time periods. Let's consider The Fly as an example. The Fly is a 1986 film where the themes have been interpreted to reflect the fears of society at the time it was released. Can you guess what people were afraid most during that time? Let's find out. The film follows an eccentric scientist, Seth, who developed pods that can have objects teleported between them. While trying to drunkenly teleport himself, he doesn't realize a fly got into the pod with him. As a result, his DNA ends up getting fused with that of the fly. As you can imagine, that does not end up going well. He starts to become this insect humanoid creature with sores and random hair growth sprouting up, along with increased aggression and more primal mind. Seth's life story is made even more complicated when he enters into a relationship with Ronnie, a reporter assigned to document his project. They test the teleportation device multiple times together as their relationship grows. However, when Seth believes Ronnie is rekindling an old flame with her former lover, he invites another woman to his warehouse. He has sex with her and tries to coerce her into teleporting as well. Both of these relationships lead us to make the connection between the act of teleportation and sex. Do you have an idea where this is going? If your answer was HIV, you were right. With the science aspect so seamlessly blended in with the relationship or sex part of the film, much of the audience at the time interpreted this movie to be about AIDS, exposing public ignorance to the subject and demonization of HIV-positive patients during AIDS epidemic. Much earlier horror movies, such as different versions of Dracula or Frankenstein, explored Western Christian society's fear of otherness. And once our eyes moved towards the stars in 50s and 60s, horror explored the ideas of alien invasion through movies like The Thing, War of the Worlds, and
yada yada yada.
So, out of all of these anxiety-inducing, scary subjects, what kind of fears controls our society in 2022?
You know, I think there's a part of you buried somewhere deep that wanted me to die that day.
Murderer! 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 Open the door, Chrissy, or I'm gonna gut you like the fat pig that you are!
Remember what you did, Nancy? Or have you already forgotten?
Yo, Trey, nigga! Look at me! You're an embarrassment to this family! God damn this!
Vecna, as he himself explained, is a predator, but for good. He preys on your shame, your guilt, and heightens your past or present trauma into a full-blown post-traumatic stress disorder. If your trauma is not spicy enough, he will make sure to mix in some distorted memories that will magnify your negative self-image. A sequence from episode 3 gives us a glimpse into Vecna's dietary preferences. Fear of rejection? Too bland. Fear of abandonment?
Just a cop. Doctors are wrong.
Too mature.
Yo, Trey, nigga! Look at me! You're an embarrassment to this family!
Now we're talking. Young, juicy, guilt-ridden mind. The Duffer Brothers' Vecna is the perfect storytelling device for psychological horror. His motivation is to restore balance by eliminating, end quote, bad people out of our fragile ecosystem. He believes humans are a unique type of pest, multiplying and poisoning our world, all while enforcing a structure of their own. Vecna, aka Henry Creel, aka 1, does not realize how much in common he has with his victims. Because of his supernatural hypersensitivity and telepathic abilities, he is able to see what truly bothers people. He will go through your baggage. He can see what you don't admit to anyone, not even to yourself. This way, he learns the truth about his father's military service during the Second World War and is also able to learn the truth about his mother's feelings towards him. This absolute and honest truth traumatizes him, and it is what brings Henry to the dark side. Losing respect and any affection towards his own family sends Henry on a killing spree, leaving only his father behind.
He had found his strength in a memory from his past. Something that made him sad, but also angry.
Vecna has completely enveloped himself with pain. His sadness and anger is what enhances his powers. But to continue on his nihilistic mission of cleansing the world of human and natural order, he needs to grow even more powerful.
I want you to join me.
This is my very elongated way of proposing the thesis of this video. Vecna is depression. Vecna is suicidal thoughts. Vecna is dark thoughts that just won't leave you alone. And the deeper you push those thoughts in, instead of talking them out, the deeper they will root themselves in and they will root you out. Vecna may think that people are pests, but he is a parasite and poisonous at that. Do you remember the distorted thoughts and memories that I mentioned earlier in this video? Let's look at how Vecna uses guilt and manipulates his victims into giving up.
Nothing is going to happen, baby. Promise. Nothing you don't deserve.
In fan favorite episode 4, Dear Billy, Max has several visions that give us a glimpse into how the loss of her stepbrother affected her. Seeing his violent death, being there in person and unable to do anything to help him has made Max unable to reconcile her feelings after this trauma occurred. She has closed herself in and did not let anyone help. Not the counselor, not Lucas, not any of her friends. Instead, she kept all of her thoughts to herself, and eventually, these thoughts took a life of their own.
I think there's a part of you buried somewhere deep that wanted me to die that day. That was maybe even relieved.
Billy was an awful stepbrother to Max. He was abusive, controlling, and he always made sure that Max believed she was nothing more than an inconvenience to him. If I were Max, I would probably wish that my abuser got his comeuppance in some way, like a night in jail or a heartbreak, not death, as Max's mind was trying to make sense of her conflicting feelings under constant flashbacks from the events at Starcourt Mall. The fragmentation of her memory began to take place. She had allowed her guilt to become the narrator of what happened there, constantly rewinding the events in her mind and never sharing her thoughts with others, created the perfect storm that allowed for all of her guilt, shame, and self-hate to settle in her mind and eventually become her truth.
You have sometimes wished to follow me into death.
We learned that Maxine's depression was so severe that she considered harming herself or even killing herself. Episode 4 truly revealed the power of friendship and love and how integral nurturing human connections and outreach are to combat depression.
They can't help you, Max. There's a reason you hide from them.
And that right there is a bold-faced lie. A lie, mind you, that you will hear too, unless you address your own shit. Go to therapy. What better way to show how wrong Vecna was about Max than with Kate Bush's lyrics contrasted with his venom. Max would have done anything to save Billy, even if it meant sacrificing her own self so that her brother could live. She rediscovers her self-worth at this moment and begins running to reclaim her life. Vecna, aka Depression personified, uses the same old trick on all of his victims. The anxiety caused by growing up and not being up to your parents' standards has become quite the focus of a few movies and shows in recent years. Chrissy suffered from imposter syndrome. Everyone thought she was perfect, but she was never good enough for her mother. In her final vision, we see her father, his eyes plucked out and mouth sewn shut, perhaps alluding to him never quite paying attention to his wife's abusive language towards Chrissy. No matter what happened in that house, Vecna was able to take just enough bad memories and distort them to make them seem worse in Chrissy's mind. Another one of Vecna's victims was a car accident survivor, Fred. We learn about the origins of Fred's facial scars through flashbacks. As a child, Fred was in an accident and managed to get himself out of the car and run in panic. Fred has internalized survivor's guilt and, through distorted thinking, came to believe that he was at fault for other passengers' deaths. Of course, Vecna helpfully aided in this process. When Henry found out about his parents' deeply rooted secrets and guilt, he lost all compassion for humanity as a whole. Dr. Brennan, Papa, further enforced this idea about humanity with all of our rules as completely evil. He implanted him with an inhibitor or tracker device to control and extract Henry's powers. Papa decided to give the inhibitor quite a curious name. Soteria is a Greek word for deliverance or salvation. Soteria is also goddess from Greek mythology who required sacrifices performed in expectations of deliverance from crisis. Did Brennan justify the experiments and torture of Henry as immoral means to a noble end? Ironically enough, Soteria is also a name for an experimental medical approach in mental health. Proponents of the Soteria method preserve residents' personal powers and give residents personal responsibilities and community service, such as helping out in the kitchen, or cleaning, or being an orderly. Soteria approach puts strong emphasis on choice and rejects coercion or restraints. Calling the implant Soteria is just petty. Sorry guys, I'm just going to have to add this to the pile of evidence that proves Brennan is the devil. While we aren't sure when Henry received the implant, we can safely assume that there was a small period of time when Henry had access to his powers in Dr. Brennan's presence, and did nothing. Was Henry too tired to reach to Brennan's mind after waking up from coma? Or is Brennan just such a devoted scientist that he does not feel guilt at all? This would further support our theory that Brennan is the devil, but also enforce our main thesis about Vecna feeding off of people's guilt and shame. He cannot fight against the true evil that hides within humanity, like Dr. Brennan. Instead, he preys on victims of trauma, isolating them from reach of nurturing relationships, and far too often ends up killing them, kind of just like depression would. Every year, close to 50,000 people die of suicide. That is an awfully large number. Now consider that for every death from suicide, there are at least 25 suicide survivors. Suicidal ideation continues to be on the rise, and growing percentage of youth lives with major depression. Lack of access to proper treatment and care continues to be a serious concern that has led several leading groups in child and adolescent care to declare mental health a state of emergency. So it makes complete sense for the Duffer Brothers to explore the monsters that haunt our minds as they pivoted from fun, thrilling, nostalgia-filled sci-fi towards this very intense horror in Season 4. Do you agree with our theory? What does Vecna symbolize for you? Share interpretations and thoughts with us in the comments. We can't wait to read them and discuss them with you. And please, reach out to your loved ones. Ask how they're doing. Tell them how you're doing. Be honest. Talk to your therapist. Do not be afraid or ashamed or guilty to ask for help.
He had found his strength in a memory from his past. Something that made him sad, but also angry.
And yeah, please don't do that.
Do it.
Seriously, don't do it.